Hey everybody, Heath Shuler Part 2 being released today. Rob and I are at Oak Tree National in Edmond, Oklahoma, playing in a scramble and recording content out on the golf course for the first time. What do you think of the morning so far?
We're already a couple under through 2 holes and keeping it going.
We're about to go 3 under because we got a 5-footer for birdie on 3, and having a good time playing with Jason Dunnington, a former Democratic legislator in Oklahoma who's now a lobbyist, and Anthony Moore, Republican legislator from Clinton, Oklahoma. And we're playing the 4-man scramble, then going to do a 2v2 Republicans versus Democrat challenge, and bipartisan effort to win this golf tournament.
Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of bipartisan, enjoy Part 2 of the Heath Shuler episode. We get into a lot of good discussions. I think it's where Rob calls me a Trump jock sniffer, so
that's true.
Should have a good time.
You know, I think ironically enough, so many of my personal relationships actually started where I lived. And, you know, there was a lot of Democrats that took heat about the C Street house, right? The family. I mean, there's books. All of that is without 100% a lie. All those are false accusations. I can tell you this, having those relationships that I had in that house, where I had dinner every Tuesday night, was the single best thing that ever happened. You know, and they were some far right guys, don't get me wrong. But to be able to have I know it sounds crazy, but from a Zach Wamp to a Jim DeMint, to be able to, I remember the Tea Party was coming after him in my district. One of the last term I ever ran, and Jim DeMint called him up and told him to, hey, quieten down. I want Heath back in Congress. It's one of those type things that, here's a Republican guy that tells the Tea Party not to go after me because he respected the things that I did. Tom Coburn, you couldn't ask for a better human being than Tom Coburn, and to be able, my son Navy got bit by a snake, a poisonous snake. The first person I called, I was on the House floor. I called Tom Coburn. I said, Doc, you got to tell me what to do, what I need to do here. And it was just that type of relationships that actually transpired that helped me through so much. So that, how do we get back to that? I think the most important thing you have to, and here's what's missing in Washington. 99% of those people in Washington have to have their job. For most cases, either financially or greed and power. Those 3 things. It's either financial, greed, power, or let me give you a 4th one. It's the only job they could ever have, right? It's really those type. It's that 4 things. And so if you have to have the job, you're going to make concessions to keep your job. If you love the greed and the power and control and everybody feeling like you're important, then you will make concessions to keep your job. And the way I always felt it, I thought if Congress would do everything that was right and what needed to be done, we'd all be fired. But 10 years from that day, they would say that was the greatest Congress to have ever served, because they would have done the right thing, even though it may have cost them their job. So if you were fearful of losing your job, then your policy was going to be spot on. If you're fearful, you were never going to do the right policy. You're never going to vote the correct way. If you didn't care whether or not you were reelected and your principles overshadowed the vote in that upcoming election, then you would win. And that's the reason we left Congress. We were in our R+12 district, and I had a 73% approval rating.
So you look at your district and at the way it was drawn before. And redistricting, I think, is probably one of the biggest problems facing the country.
Without a doubt.
But you fit that district perfectly. Do you think, if it was drawn the same way as it was 12 years ago, you'd win it again?
Well, I'd have to move there probably, and I'm not willing to move back. This is home. Tennessee is home for me. They tried to get me to run for this district. This is probably an R18 district. I would say the Knoxville area, and some very, very important people. Uh, kind of what I would consider the business leaders of this community, all of which I've known and been partners with, had friendships. I mean, I was 18 points ahead of the city member of Congress, running as an independent, 18 points ahead of a sitting member of Congress, to run as an independent. Obviously, name ID, reputation that I had, either whether I played ball here, the business relationships and that I had while I lived in Knoxville area. So, I think it really goes down to the personal relationships and always being honest, always giving back to your and doing it for all the right reasons. I think it doesn't overshadow the R and the D to most people, but it overshadows enough to get you elected by a large margin.
Well, I've seen churches that are being split over who they vote for president, and I believe that nobody is 100% correct. And while I can have sharp political disagreements with somebody, we can agree on our faith. But so many people that can't even happen now. That if you believe the wrong way, then you're not the right kind of Christian. And where did this start to happen? Because I know you growing up in the South, there were probably plenty of Democrats and plenty of Republicans that all attended the same Baptist church, and they may disagree, but at the end of the day, they put their faith first and came together for worship.
Matt, I think that was kind of probably the most disturbing thing for me, believe it or not. Of all the things that were just shocking to me was two things. One, I had my first encounter when I first made the announcement. I had a Sunday school teacher. Now, she taught me when I was really young in Sunday school. She come up to me and she says, "How can you be a Democrat? You're going to go to hell and be a Democrat." And then I'm like, "You were at church when I professed my faith to Christ. How can you say that to me?" So that was disturbing for me. The second thing is, I'll never forget, I went to Yancey County and I held a group of preachers in the community, invited them all out. I wanted them to hear me and have, hear my stance, kind of, for all purposes, hear my testimony. And I'll never forget, I went around, was starting to shake hands with the folks when I first got there. And one of the preachers showed up and he refused to shake my hand. And I said, that just, that bothered me. And then I'll never forget, President Bush called me to the White House and asked me to go to this little event that he was having. He was trying to get some of his policy, and it was in the foreign relations bill and foreign affairs bill that it was some malaria and AIDS medicine, that was put in there. And it was kind of really important to him. And I took a lead in the House, and he said, "Hey, it's been really hard to try to get some Republicans over here that were kind of like-minded." And he said, "Would you come to this event?" And I did. And I'm not going to mention which organization this was, but this guy goes over to the president and says, "Well, sir, just want you to know that we're definitely going to score this bill because we don't feel that, we should be given this much money of foreign aid over to Africa, where the money was going. There's some things that we need to take care of business here at home." And knowing, I think it was $1.25 would save a person's life. And I'll never forget, I said, "Mr. President," I said, "would you mind if I speak here?" And he said, "No, Congressman, go ahead." And so I said, "Sir," I said, "I don't understand." I said, "You're wanting to score a piece of legislation, knowing well that you will get every Republican's vote, and this bill's going to go under." I said, "But it's going to, for $1.25, we can save somebody's life." And he said, "Yeah, but we need to do some things here and say we need to spend more money here in the U.S." And I said, "Sir, I don't know which God that you're praying to, but my God has no boundaries. That a life in Africa is equal to the life in Western North Carolina." I said, "If it saves a child or if it saves an adult, and we can do it for that small amount of money, let's save every life we possibly can. Is there anything more important? And is there anything more pro-life than that? You're a pro-life organization. You want to score it because, there's some possibility of some foreign aid way tucked away in some other, piece of legislation that may go to hypothetically speaking, performing an abortion. I mean, it was this hypothetical stuff that they kept coming up with. And, those three incidents in my life that, when I was in Congress really that really bothered me. It really, really bothered me. And so I got a chance to go, speak to a group. A group in North Carolina every single year. They invited Democrats just to say that they had invited them. And it was an all men's conference. It was all preachers. And I got my chance on the podium, and they didn't believe I'd show up. And I did, brother. I brung it to them. And I told them, I said, very first thing, they were scared to death what I was going to say. And I said, I've been in your congregation, maybe not your individual congregation. I said, but you stepped on my toes. And sometimes my toes need to be stepped on, right? And I needed a wake up call. But I'm here to tell you that we got to wake up. And I said, I asked them, I kind of tricked them into it. I said, tell me about your congregation. Who all in this group? I said, raise your hand if you've got a building fund. You want to build a bigger, greater, larger church. Raise your hand. Well, there was 600 preachers in there, and all 600 of them raised their hand. And I said, that's wonderful. That's great. I said, now you guys tell me. And I went through a couple of scriptures, and it was a great thing. One of my district guys, he actually was a preacher. So we was able to kind of get some really good information in the book of Matthew. And so I started saying, I said, all right, now who in this group? I said, now look, God's watching. I said, so don't be lying to me. I said, who in here has and this is when the healthcare bill, I didn't vote for the healthcare bill, but I thought it was hypocrisy that they were up there, complaining about healthcare, not voting for the healthcare bill. I said, how many of you guys have a fund that's dedicated 100% for providing healthcare to the sick, the widows, the poor? I said, who does it? Not a single one of them raised their hand. None of them raised their hand. And I said, you know what's wrong with this? I said, if our churches were not failing us, we wouldn't have to have the federal government to step in and take care of our communities. In my book, the churches, if we will take care of it, we don't need government to take care of, to provide health care, education, you name it, every social program that we actually have. If you will read the Bible, every social program that we have in this country, the churches are the ones that should be taking care of this. And so I said, guess what? You guys have failed us. You have failed us, not the government. The government's having to pick up for the lack of what you have done. And believe it or not, I got a standing ovation by these guys, but it was, at some point in time, you just have to tell it like it is. So they stepped on my toes as a little kid, and it was at times I needed it. And guess what? I got a chance to let them know that they needed to do more. They needed to help provide it because they can do it a better job than we can.
Don't feel bad. I've had way more than 3 people tell me I'm going to hell. So it's, I mean, you're complaining about 3. I mean, come on. I'm still here.
I love it.
I'm still hanging in there. Well, let's move on to current politics, really, comfortable conversations.
Yeah.
I first met.
The show's going downhill from now, guys.
We usually end with some golf and we bring it back.
Okay.
I first met President Biden in 2008, and I had the pleasure of getting to know him. I met going to an IBEW event with Hayden and you. Yep. And had a chance to get to know him on the golf course, at dinners, when he was vice president. I love the guy. I think it was the right thing for him to step aside. Yeah. I like Kamala Harris a lot. I think she's got a chance to win. Probably not my first choice. We don't all get our first choice. What are your thoughts about Joe Biden stepping aside and Kamala Harris stepping in, and what's your sort of read on where things go from here?
So I agree with you. I mean, I think it was time for Joe to step aside. I think he's obviously, you can debate some of the merits and you can always turn the numbers, but in reality, I mean, I think Joe did some really good things for his country. I felt like when the interest rate was kind of ticking up, I was wondering, oh, this is not going to work, not going to work. But wow, and the reality to it, I think I was wrong in the sense of, was he going to be able to help stabilize? Is the economy where everybody wants it to be? No, but who you can fault on it is actually Trump and him. Anytime you pass out that kind of money during COVID and you bail out every American, whether they needed it or not, you're going to have, I'll never forget, you look it up on my Twitter, when I tweeted out the first time they did some bailout money, I was like, watch out, inflation, here it comes. Being a budget committee guy and always looking at the fiscal responsibility of this nation, I knew that was a mistake. I know it bailed out some people that really needed it, but we all hear those stories of people that they were, even during COVID, was some of the best financial times they ever had, and they received $8, $9, $10 million, and it just probably they didn't utilize the best efforts when it come to how they were dishing out the money. They just felt like they had to get it out the door faster, and no oversight, no qualifications for it, just write checks. And both presidents did that. So I think he, even besides that, I think he did a good job to stabilize the economy. We didn't go into a recession, which was good. As it relates to, at first I was like, okay, you got 350 million and our choice is Biden and Trump. We got to do better than this. I think what's going to ultimately have to happen, I think it certainly made it a real race now with Harris. You're right. She not going to be a lot of the Democrats' first choice. I think it's going to be real important who she selects as a vice president. I don't think if she does not need to have a way left liberal, come out. It needs to be a more of a moderate type member of vice president selection, and it will make it a true race. I think it's anyone's, but at some point in time, I told a friend of mine that's, been in the Republican Party for a long time. And, the Republicans got to take the party back away from Trump. At some point they've got to figure out that this is not the real path. When I think of the Republican Party, I used to think of, this is the Wall Street guys. This is the strong business minded individuals that kind of run and control the party. And now you're looking at it's Hulk Hogan, and what's that dude, Kid Rock? That's who your spokespersons are for the Republican Party. Come on.
I thought Hulk Hogan was the highlight of the whole damn.
Well, he may have been the highlight, Rob, but let me tell you who wasn't, and that was Kid Rock. First of all, stop buying your clothes from Baby Gap, okay? Find a T-shirt that actually fits and can cover the beer gut, right? That was so embarrassing. And the other second most embarrassing thing was those people tried to act like they knew what he was saying and tried to dance to it. First of all, I sat there in complete outburst of just like, what is happening? This is the most embarrassing thing of any convention I've ever seen in my life, that they were trying to dance to Kid Rock's trying to rap that made no sense, and they couldn't understand it. Even to the point I saw the Trump family kind of whisper back and forth, and I bet I could only imagine they were probably saying the same thing. What is this? But think about, that's who you want to be the face of your party. Is it WWE? Is it? Come on, our country's a lot better than that. And so the Republicans got to take back at some point in time. They've got to take back the party.
Well, I'm the token Democrat on the Golf and Politics podcast, so I got to take Matt and Corey's bullshit week in, week out. I'm done. I'm going to start, throwing my punches back. I don't get the fascination with Donald Trump. I'm sure most of the people around you probably vote for Trump, right? What is it?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
What is it about him that you think draws?
It's an infatuation. It's a no nonsense. I'm going to give it back to. Here's what's happened though. Members of Congress created this problem. Perception has become the reality. When you go to Congress, before you get to Congress, what do you say? Congress is broken. Congress is horrible. Congress is this. And the real truth of the matter, Congress is really not broken. We just tell everybody that's broken. It actually functions better than any government in the entire world, even when things doesn't seem to go exactly the way one party does, or maybe not the way that we, are able to, fix every problem in this country. It actually functions very well. Believe it or not, individually, there's really great people on both sides of the aisle, but we've created this problem. We've created it that it's awful. We created it that's this swamp, right? And there's bad people there. Well, let's just look at the reality to it. There has been more turnover in the last 12 years in Congress than there were like 30 years prior. So who is the problem? Is it these new people, or was it the people that have been there for decades? I think it's the new people, because they don't communicate with one another. They think compromise is a 4-letter word, and they won't have a relationship with somebody on the other side of the aisle. And that goes both ways.
If I'd interrupt, so one of the reasons, I think you're exactly right. I'm not disagreeing with much of what you're saying. It's hard to take the party back, though, from the guy whose party it is now. I mean, this is the Donald Trump party.
Yeah.
It's fundamentally different than the George Bush party that I grew up working with.
Absolutely.
There's some good things about that and bad things about that. I'll keep my opinions to myself on it. But from a demographic standpoint, what we're dealing with, I ask this question on about every single survey that I do. And we'll ask the question, would you prefer a state legislator who's going to get things done for his district and work across lines to get things done? Or do you want somebody that will never compromise, no matter what, on his conservative principles? And here's the other thing: people in the Republican Party don't even know what conservative means anymore. But that's the way that's the way we rephrase the question. We sometimes we'll say a fighter who will never compromise. And it's always. I don't care where the district is. With Republican primary voters right now, it's 80-20. They want a fighter who's never going to compromise. Well, that's problematic if we're going to get better infrastructure, better health care. These things need compromise to get done. And that's become a curse word in Republican primaries. And it's tough to get thoughtful, intellectual people elected sometimes to a more populist person that will just scream and yell.
I know the individual who actually came up with the idea of how to get Trump elected. The guy that actually put forth the plan. And he called me. He says, "Hey, here's the plan. What do you think?" And I said, well, first of all, how are you going to be at that time? It was, it was early, and, it was Trump. And I said, how are you going to get, Hillary's going to win. That's why I just said, Hillary's going to win this. Right. And at that point in time, she was like 15 points ahead of him, something crazy. He said, we got to get the uneducated white men to start voting. And that's the only block that's out there that's available. And it's a big block. And so he started putting forth the talking points, if you will. And I said, so how is this wealthy, maybe billionaire going to communicate? He don't know what, the Bubbas of the world, what they do, don't know anything about them. How's this country club New York guy going to communicate with them? He said, it won't matter as long as he says that he's willing to fight for them to the very end. And we went through this whole talking points, and I'm like, okay, maybe that'll work, but how do you get to them? And they did it, and I think that's what you're seeing today. I mean, it's still, like I said, even here in Knoxville, when you're looking at the true business leaders in this community, they're not Trump fans. They're probably going to vote for him, but they're not Trump fans. They just like, this is not our party. We got to take it back. And, but you're right.
He's consistently underestimated by folks on how good he is with the crowd, with medium of television, and communicating to the people that Rob, Corey, and I grew up with in the Upper Ohio Valley.
Absolutely.
He knows how to speak their language, and it's been pretty incredible to see. Like East Palestine, Ohio, when they had the train derailment that caused the big he's there buying people McDonald's and handing out water bottles. Like he knows the power of the camper. He's a masterful politician.
No question about it.
He's a great showman.
Yeah. I'll never forget, though. I was with him. I took the Blue Dogs to New York when I was the coach here, and we met with every of the top CEOs in America, from BlackRock to AT&T to Bank of America. I mean, we met with the best of the best. So kind of a Blue Dog is our retreat, and it was a way that we kind of the ties off, no staff, 2 hours with the top CEOs in America, but for fun. And we were learning a lot. How to what policy would, create a strong economy, get everybody's opinion, cultivate that. And in the same time, ask for their support for things like PAYGO and create a balanced budget and look at our debt and deficit. And so we had this little time to go over to Trump Tower, and it was because the show was good. And I'll never forget at that time. I mean, he kept, because we were all Blue Dogs, and somebody had told him on his team told him that, there was a lot of pro-life guys there. And he was like, you guys ought to be ashamed of yourself. And he was like, you shouldn't be. I said, sir, we don't, the social issues, we don't, that's not a Blue Dog policy. Social issues, an individual policy. Yes, or maybe, those type individuals here, but we talk about a strong military, strong defense, and national, curbing our national debt and get a balanced budget. And he pulled over, looked at me, he goes, if it wasn't for abortion, no telling how many kids I'd have in New York City. And I'm like, that may be the craziest thing anybody's ever said to me. I'm like, I can't believe this. And then I watch this guy on TV, and I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the same guy. And he talks about all this stuff. I mean, I told my son this the other day. I said, never in your life should you sell your soul to accomplish your ultimate goals. Don't ever sell your soul to do it, and people are willing to do that to become elected.
Nor should real leaders attack various parts of the country in order to win the whole of it. And for me, my problem with the guy, beyond being completely full of shit, is that he punches down. When you're a billionaire former president of the United States, you don't get to play victim every day of the week. Like, I think it's terrible what happened to him in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
totally agree with that.
On a day-to-day basis, the amount of punching down he does on people that are just living their lives or expressing their opinions or expressing their dissent. If you're a Republican today and you criticize them, you're canceled. You are out of the game.
Yeah.
And the fealty they show to him, and strong leaders build people up. Strong leaders build coalitions. They make concessions. Strong leaders don't feel a need to, they're not afraid of dissent. They're not afraid to be challenged. And beyond all the fluff that he does, selling Bibles for $59.99 with his name on it, and running around, judging people. I mean, give me a break.
Is this making you feel better, Rob? You get it all out? Feel good now?
No.
Hey, he told me, he said, I can't wait till you get on the show. I'm like,
I technically,
I'd really like to hear the congressman's perspective more than I know you this time.
I technically am the host today. You're calling in from a Bob Evans parking lot.
I'm now in a CBS parking lot in Beckley, West Virginia. So.
Well, let's have the production team mute Matt.
Let me tell you, Rob, let me tell you this. Matt's actually right, though. I mean, there's a lot of, he's right. I mean, Trump is a sales guy. He understands it. He can sell it. He can absolutely sell it. Let me tell you what. When he got shot, he couldn't have put $100 million down to create the shot of him, blood dripping down his face, fist in the air, and the American flag behind him.
Right off the bat.
Unbelievable.
If I were the Trump campaign right now, and I am not, but if I were the Trump campaign right now,
well, don't give him everything, Rob.
But this is what would worry me. So for the last 6 months, he was up over Biden nationally, steadily by a point or two. In the swing states, some of them by a point, down a point, up 3, up 4, maybe. The guy gets shot in the ear does a famous pose and only gets a 1 point bounce. What's that tell you? That means the undecided vote doesn't want to go to him. And it also didn't want to go to Joe Biden. The biggest problem they have right now is that I think this guy's at his ceiling. I don't think he appeals to anybody outside of the MAGA circle. And, I'm going to go ahead as host and take the liberty to continue pontificating, Matt, because I've been a good little foot soldier. I was quiet when Lou Holtz said that our education system's broken and Biden's going to win because we're all stupid. I was quiet. But, if you two, Matt, you remind me of what they used to say around athletes that are always kissing up to the athletes. They called them jock sniffers. You're a Trump jock sniffer.
Hey, I am a Republican strategist, and I know my lane.
I love you. I love you, Matt. I do. I really do. You are as good of a human being as there is. You're just wrong. I'm just kidding. I still love you. He's not a jock sniffer. I take that back. But your guy's full of shit. I mean, he's just full of shit.
Well, the congressman has already told us that 99% of them are full of shit. So here we are. I mean, it's just what we're dealing with.
That's right.
I mean, and honestly, we know where we stand. I mean, this thing, I don't think it's going to change all that much. It's going to be about who's going to turn out their vote. I mean, you're right.
Yeah. People
that are undecided are still undecided. There's very, very few of them. And ultimately, they probably just aren't voters.
So here's what I heard, Matt. I heard going into this, I heard it on Wednesday with a pollster that they were going in the field with Kamala and against Trump, and they matched the VP candidate up and went kind of head to head into the Trump. And they said that there was with Biden and Trump, they had gotten, it was less than 1% that was undecided. I don't know if that was true, but with Harris on the ticket against Trump, there was 6% undecided.
Well, it's true. I mean, when I sent an article to Rob from a Democrat in New York City, that I think Rob would get along with and agree with, and he made a good point. He said, the money that Harris gets from the Biden campaign operation, $240 million, that's absolutely necessary for her, because the direct mail and the ads promoting Kamala Harris has a greater chance of making an impact than if they would have spent it on Biden, because everybody already knew Biden. Everybody already knows Trump. Yeah. So on the Republican side, I think it's going to be all about defining. I mean, Trump is going to have to define Kamala in his terms and speak louder, and we're going to have to turn out our voters. But look, at the end of the day, I'm just a strategist. I can't predict how the American people are going to feel about these issues. I just look at the polling and direct my candidates the best I can.
For the record, Matt is predicting Trump to take 48.
I am not predicting Trump. That is asinine. I'm not predicting that.
I have the screenshot. I have the receipt.
That was from like 1 a.m. and you're arguing with me on a text message because it's your favorite pastime. And I was just trying to get a little more of a rise out of you. I don't think 48. I do think that Trump will win the popular vote. And I think these next 30 days are critical for Kamala Harris. I mean, she has 30 days really going into this convention to audition in front of the American people to see if she's ready to do the job. And if after 30 days she does a good job, then I may change my predictions. We'll see.
What about who she picks?
I think you're rattled. I think you're both rattled. You see the 81 million that poured in.
What I'm rattled about is that I chunked my wedge shot today after hitting a 355-yard drive and missed the green. So that's what I'm rattled about. My wedge game just left me completely. So I need to get to the range tomorrow and work on that. That's what I'm rattled about.
What about? I would like to hear from the congressman on who he thinks Kamala may pick, because I was having a discussion today where if she picked Governor Cooper, it could take North Carolina off the table.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a very well-respected governor in North Carolina. I think that would be a tremendous pick on her side. I like Governor Cooper. I mean, the question is he going to be the dynamic, policy, maker that's going to be needed in that campaign. I mean, that's, it's no different than JD on that side. I mean, he's only been in the Senate for 18 months. On that ticket, who's the policymaker? Who's the one that's going to go, up to the hill and try to really cast the votes on, try to get people to kind of to move. Maybe that has to be Trump. I don't know. But I think Cooper will be a great pick. I mean, you got Governor Stein from Pennsylvania. That's obviously another swing state. I mean, then you got the governor from Kentucky. I mean, there's a kind of a blue dog type governor, right? I mean, if you can, is his policies going to weigh in on Kamala Harris's policies? I don't know, but I mean, you would think. I mean, the truth be known, I like to see like a Joe Manchin / Mitt Romney ticket, right? One that you go, wow, here's two guys that they'll stand up. They believe what they're going. It's not about, their political parties. It's about doing what's right for this country. At some point in time, I would wish that we could get someone that had the money behind them, the credibility behind them, that just is willing to stand up. I know a third party doesn't. It's almost impossible the way each state has crafted, to be a two-party system in this country. But, I still would love to see that third party group to kind of really come together. I'd love to see a Democrat / Republican on a ticket at some point in time.
Well, Congressman, let me tell you that we never, none of us ever thought we'd see the Teamsters president be welcome at the Republican National Convention, but not at the Democrat National Convention. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think in the next 4 years, 8 years, I think a lot of things can happen. I don't think any of us ever expected Donald Trump to be president. It's a wild time, and I think things are going to change.
The Simpsons predicted it.
Well, Corey,
same with Kamala too. For the record,
Corey, her name is Kamala. Kamala was a WWF wrestler in the early 1990s who lost to the Big Boss Man and Hulk Hogan.
Well, so, I'm a wrestling fan, so that's probably where I come up with that name. So
before we go to golf, which is the linchpin that keeps the three of us sane and friends, because if we just kept down the Trump Kamala road, we would not be pals. But one of the things that, just last thing on your congressional career, that I thought was the best work was the Simpson Bowles Commission, and I think it's a shame.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a shame that it didn't get done on debt reduction. I actually read the Republican platform. They had one this year. And my key takeaway from the entire platform, there was not a single mention in there about the deficit or the national debt. The only reference to spending at all was curb wasteful spending. They pledged, both J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, to not touch a dime of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which is the largest driver of the debt. And they're also promising to extend the $4 trillion tax cuts in perpetuity, $4 trillion a decade and rising, which means we're on our way to $50 trillion of debt. We are a long way from the party of George H.W. Bush, Richard Nixon, Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan. How do we get something like the Simpson Bowles Commission back in line? How do we get, and in fairness to my friends on the other side of the aisle, Democrats don't seem to give a shit about the debt anymore either.
No, neither one does.
How do we get back to talking about the debt and explaining to the American people?
It has to hurt financially. It has to be a situation where something catastrophic happens in this country. And then, at this point in time, Congress works in knee-jerk reactions. It works in only in time of 100% have-tos, no foresight ahead, no vision. And, they don't, the government is not being ran like a business is, where you forecast, revenues, you forecast expenditures, you plan for that. That's not being happened. Part of it is you don't have real business guys there, anymore. You have a lot of people who inherited a lot of money, but you really don't have real business people there that have taken businesses and really grown their businesses and use that same approach. Until you get to a performance-based budget, it's not going to happen. I mean, the Simpson Bowles was probably one of the best pieces of legislation ever. I'll never forget. We had the votes. I went to I went to Chris, who was the chairman at the time of the budget committee. I went to Paul Ryan. I said, "Hey, I think I've got the votes that the Bowles Simpson. It was my piece of legislation." I said, "That's going to be our budget. I think I've got the votes," and they both laughed. If it wasn't for Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she walked out of the vote after committing to me that she would vote for it. We would have passed the Bowles Simpson. It would have been the only budget that would have passed out of the budget committee that year. She gets up, she walks out before the vote. And it's the problem that I have with that is she didn't want to be the deciding, she was W, right? So she got with her last name, she was the last person to vote. She gets up and walks out. It will end up being a tie. This was, I was going against Chris, the chairman, and there was Paul, and Paul Ryan was very helpful. I love Paul Ryan, but, he wanted his budget, right? But we had it done. And, most people remember the Gang of Six in the Senate, but there actually was a Gang of Eight in the House. And there was 8 of us House members, 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. And we met behind secret doors. No one ever knew that we met. We met for 8 months, and we met once a week for 8 months. And we went through it, and we were giving a lot of the talking points and allowed the senators, and we felt like it was in our best interest to remain silent behind closed doors. We met with the Gang of Six in the Senate at least every other month. And it could not have gone better. And it was probably the greatest single, policy that never passed, that should have passed. We'd have been in a different place in our country today. But it was going to take a little bit of, it's going to have to sting a little bit on both sides. But if you truly believe in the next generation to be able to solve our problem, it's got to sting for a few of us today.
Well, the biggest problem I see is, on the left, you have groups like the AARP and all these other groups that make Democrats sign these pledges. I will never cut a nickel of Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. And then on the right, you've got these groups that make them sign pledges. I will never raise a tax. I will never do this, that, and the other. And so you get all these congressmen that are signing these ridiculous pledges. And if you're trying to balance a budget, you only have 2 levers: revenue and expenditures. And if both sides take entitlements off the table and one side takes revenue off the table, we're in a spiral. So we've kept you longer than ordinary. Part of it is because I want to get my licks in.
Well, part of it too is because I have a lot of respect for you, Congressman. We probably won't agree on everything, but there are real problems, and everything we're talking about are real issues. And I think that we're always frustrated because we want to see the country do better, but we're trapped in a political system right now where very few people decide who runs this country. We just had our elections in Oklahoma, and look, there's no Democrat that has a snowball's chance at hell at winning a congressional seat in Oklahoma. And the statewide turnout for our congressional primaries was 18% of just registered Republicans. So when you look at it as a whole,
you're only getting the crazies show up. Only the crazies show up. Look at the people who run each party. Let's just be realistic. They're nuts.
Yeah.
They're not the reflection of American people. 80% of America is looking at those people and saying, this is not the path we need to go down.
Hey, something you both will appreciate. Donald Trump helped save Congressman Tom Colt. I'll put it that way. Some guy from Texas moved in and spent $8 million trying to beat the appropriations chair. And Tom Colt's a good man.
I love Tom.
But Trump's endorsement helped get him across the finish line. There's far right people will run, and look, I'm conservative as they come, but there are people that are so conservative they can't see that good things are happening in their community by other conservative people, but they're not part of the far right clique.
Well, you're in there with Dan Boren. there's another great,
who's now a registered Republican.
Great member of Congress. Love that guy. I mean, awesome. The best thing about, I tell Dan, I said, the best thing about Dan Boren is his brother-in-law is Josh Heupel. And he's a head football coach at Tennessee. And it's, but no, I mean, you couldn't ask for voted on principle.
My business partner got his start in politics. Well, actually, it was kind of he had worked in politics, went to be a journalist, and then he ended up being the communications director for Tom Coburn in 1994. And the way he tells the story is that Tom Coburn called him and asked him to work on his race. And he said, "I've never heard of you." And his wife sat up in bed. It was a Saturday morning and said, "Dr. Tom Coburn, you need to work for him. He's going to be the next congressman." And he delivered every baby in Muskogee. And that's how our firm got started, was getting Tom Coburn elected in 1994.
No way. Yeah. What a great guy. What a great guy.
Well, I want to know the state of your golf game.
Rob, you know the state of my golf game.
Hit it 350 yards like Matt and then lay the sod over a lob wedge.
It was so good.
Matt knows which direction is going to go. Here's the sad part is, Rob, they always say, "Oh, your body will start paying for it." I've got a torn labrum, my left shoulder. It's an old football injury. It's just, I can't, Rob, I hate to tell you this. I don't own a set of clubs any longer. I love to work. I mean, work is my passion. I love to work. I love what I do. And so I don't have the time, to do it anymore.
When you work,
and I don't have a great coach. When I played with Rob one day, where's your golf club, right?
Yeah, at RTJ. I had you playing great.
Yeah, I shot the best round of 9 holes ever. I was like 1 over, 2 over after 9.
Yeah, we played with your pastor, who was also a good
golfer. Yeah, I mean, it was the best round of golf I ever played, and it was with Rob. And I probably played 4 or 5 times a year, but Rob actually was teaching me the proper way. I had an outside in swing, so I'd have to play my slice because I had the old baseball swing, and Rob was teaching me how to do it. And so,
your dad and your brother are hell of golfers.
They play enough golf for all of us combined, So my dad has shot he's 75 now and has shot his age like a dozen or 2 times. Wow. So
what are some of the best golf courses you played when you were golfing?
I honestly, I don't know one golf course, a good one from a bad one, other than, I played High Hampton, North Carolina, played Mountain Air, which was obviously, at the time was a pretty decent course. Holston Hills in Knoxville, believe it or not, that's a Donald Ross course. That's a great little course. It's really a golf, it's a golfer's, kind of place. I can't say I played Sawgrass once. I played a couple of, pretty decent. I played Pebble Beach, 9 holes and got rained out the back 9. I played some pretty decent, rounds of golf over the years, but, I'm not like you guys. I'm not,
Yeah, Gort.
I guess have you played the new Waynesville Inn since those guys took it over and
No, I haven't. Actually, my sons played it, my in-laws, they're members there still. They've been members for, 50 probably years, that's a great, they've done a really good job with that. It's there's some, North Carolina's got some great, great courses, Mountaintop is the other one I was thinking of. It's not Mountain Air. Mountaintop is the one up in Highlands or Cashers. That's a really great course. That's Balsam Mountain Preserve is a great course. That's a really, really cool place to go play.
It seemed like your hobby that you did with other members of Congress was hunting, right?
Yeah, I love to bird hunt, bird hunting and cycling. I know the two of those don't go together. A shotgun and wearing a, spandex on a bike don't go together, but I love to pedal. I love to ride my bike, when I was living in Asheville, you'd find me on the Blue Ridge Parkway, just pedaling away. It's hard for a big guy like me to get on a bike and be competitive and, but I do the Grand Fondos and I'd at least place, in the finals in my age. I'd always say if most of these people I was competing against, probably weighed 50 pounds less than I did, but I was competitive and, I'd go from a start to finish and give it all I had. So I love to ride a bike. I mean, I like the road bike. I love to pedal.
Did
You
you
know.
ever go biking with Congressman Mike Turner?
I did not, but you know who I went with a lot was um, former speaker. Um, he and I went. We would go with the Capitol Hill Police, and so we'd go out quite a bit. And
Paul Ryan,
no, the last speaker,
McCarthy.
Yeah, Kevin.
Didn't you do P90X with Paul?
Now, Paul and I did P90X together almost every day. We loved that. That guy come in. We brought him to DC 4 or 5 times to do P90X. It was great. We loved it. I mean, it was a way, but it was once again, it was the early morning gym workouts that you got to be able to talk policy to people and cultivate a relationship. And or get on a plane and, be flying back. I'd fly into Charlotte sometime and connect to Asheville or I'd fly into Greenville, South Carolina and drive up before we had a direct flight out of Asheville. And, I'd be on the plane with Mick Mulvaney and Jeff and just the whole crowd there. And you cultivate a relationship, I always used to tell them that's my South Carolina crazies, but I would do anything for those guys and they would do anything for me. I mean, it was just, you develop those relationships. So P90X, the house gym's a great way to, develop relationships. I will tell you this, the one thing you never should ever do is underestimate a guy like I did Peter Welch, Senator Welch now. So Peter and I, we were classmates, came in and we were working out and, because of my foot injury, I really can't run. If I do, I kind of pay for it because of my foot injury. I mean, it really swells, aches, but Peter says, "Hey, I'd like to go running with you one day." I said, "Well, I'll do a lot of running. I kind of do short stuff and then I'll, fast walking." "Oh, that'll be great. We'll jog and we'll just talk and we'll stop along the way." I said, "Okay, great." And so I'm thinking, Peter's several years older than I am. This is no big deal. There's no way he can go. So out walks Peter. And he's got this marathon shirt on. I'm like, I'm hoping he just got that from the Goodwill, And so we go for this nice jog, and this dude has ran me into the ground. And I finally said, I looked at him and said, "Peter, would you quit asking me questions? I'm about to die here, and you're not even breathing hard, I was not built for long distance here. And this guy, never underestimate a guy like Peter Welch,
Were you were roommates with Marco Rubio, right?
I love Marco.
Yeah.
Marco is such a great, we're talking about a guy that loves sports, I'm just such a big fan of Marco's. People may criticize me because of my relationship with him, but I love Marco Rubio. Mike Lee is another one that I lived with there in C Street House. And gosh, just Mike Lee and Marco Rubio are truly one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. Could not be better. I enjoyed when you're sitting there and it's late in the evening and one of them walks in and you're having a conversation, you really get to know them on a personal level. I will tell you this, the first person outside of my family that will wish me happy birthday every year is Senator Mike Lee. That's great. He's just a quality human being. You sit there and you have dinner on Tuesday nights with those guys and, you share, personal stories, relationships. And to me, that was one of the greatest 5 years of living in the same house with all of those guys I ended up being the only Democrat in the whole house,
My problem,
I was their moral compass.
My problem with your birthday is I can never remember if it's December 31st or January 1st. So the way to split the baby would be for me to text you at midnight, but at midnight, you're in bed.
I'm in bed. Yeah.
And, I shouldn't be texting.
It may be the only night of the year that I'm actually awake, Rob. That goes to show you how much he knows me. I am an early morning guy. I go to bed as early as I possibly can. And so that hasn't changed in my life.
So I just combine the happy birthday and happy new year and send it generally over that.
Around that time.
Around that time. All right. So with every guest, we do what we call a shotgun 9. To close out the show.
Okay.
9 quick answer questions.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to let Matt go first. Only because I've been mean to Matt today, and I need to be nice to Matt because I'm going to get 4 episodes in a row of MAGA for Wait, I'm gonna get at least 4.5 hours of why we need to build a damn wall. You know, the benefits of Vladimir Putin's leadership.
I mean, we had Justin Clark on, and you skipped the damn episode because you fell asleep in Ireland too early. So
that is not totally true, but close. Go ahead.
All right. First question: how many wins will Tennessee have this year in football?
10 wins.
Okay, second question. Will Russell Wilson finish the season as the Steelers starting quarterback?
Oh my gosh. See, I knew he was going to ask a question like this. It always has to turn around back to the Steelers, right, guys? He always has to talk about he can't carry on a conversation without talking about the Steelers.
I keep it on message. So
I hope so. I'm a big fan of Russell Wilson's. I hope he finishes strong and they make the playoffs.
Awesome. That's the only answer you could give. I
love it.
That's
right.
I'm
a big fan. I think he's great.
All right. Corey.
For the record, I've fallen asleep at RTJ in the bar. We'll go with falling asleep at the bar.
That's great.
Too many espresso martinis. But anyhow, who would you say was your best friend on the Republican side and the Democrat side when you were?
Oh my goodness! I mean, see, I think it's so hard to tell. Who is my best friend on the Republican side? I mean, I can't. I had so many friends on both sides. If I were to say one individual name, I think I would upset someone else.
Say a couple. Give us a couple.
I have to go with a Zach Wamp. I have to go with obviously Mike Lee. I mean, the guys that I lived with, Tom Coburn. I have to go with those guys. I mean, every single one of them that lived in my house, I would have to go with, the Marco Rubios of the world.
Matt?
Why did you wear number 21 as a quarterback?
Well, it was by default. I moved up from JV to varsity my freshman year. It was the lowest number that was available, and I was a quarterback. So my high school coach gave it to me. So that was my freshman year. Starting my sophomore year, and Rob obviously met my former coach who recently passed. He was kind of a no nonsense. And so it was irrelevant to him what number, and never asked me ever again. And he gave me the number 21 going into my sophomore year. It would have not been the right thing for me to go to him and ask him for a different number. That would have not been a good thing for me to do. So I just kept it.
Were you the only major college quarterback? Doug Flutie wear 21 too.
22. He was 20. Doug was 22.
Okay.
And then when I go to college, National Day of Signing, David Cutcliffe brings the 21 jersey. I thought for sure I was going, okay. He never asked, brought the 21 jersey, and that stuck, And then I went in the NFL. I'm like, hey, I want to make a push to the league to wear 21 in the league. And they said no, 1-19.
Well, you'd had some nice NIL deals back in the day of 21 jerseys in Knoxville, I'm sure.
I know.
All right. You're an NFL GM.
Yes.
You got a good young offense, great receiving core. Who do you draft, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady?
Rob, I live in the state of Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I'm going to get you in trouble.
Gosh, I love
Let's keep
Peyton,
the door open for a political future here.
I mean, how do you can't take it? You can't take the ball out of Tom Brady's hands. Sorry. I love Peyton, but you can't take the ball out of that dude's hands. I mean, I went and watched him play the Steelers in the AFC Championship game took my dad as a gift for him. And we're
going to need to edit this part. We're going to need
this is painful memory for all of us.
Yeah. Went up there, and I'm not exaggerating. I watched that game. We sat on the 45-yard line, and he never missed a throw. I'd never seen anybody in all my life. He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he is something special to watch. Never missed a throw. Not the whole game.
Yeah. We all saw it for 18 terrible years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or-
But I love Peyton. I mean, Peyton's done so much at the University of Tennessee and continues to do well. It's hard to take the ball, but I mean, you ask the question, you get an answer.
All right, and I'm gonna ask my last one here, and I'll let them finish off with theirs. If Peyton Manning called you today and said, "Heath, I want to run for office," what would you tell him?
I guess it would be if he's trying to just stay relative in the world, right? And stay, keep shelf life in what you do, or you truly have the heart to serve your country, And if you get the patent answer, of course I want to serve, I think you have to do it for all the right reasons. I think you're ultimately deep down, you're a very miserable person if you do it for those other reasons that I talked about. Greed, only job you can hold down. Well, that's not the case for him. Or power, um, I would be shocked if he ever decided to run. I mean, I don't think it would be. I can't see him and Trump being buddies. Maybe wrong, but would be surprising.
Question: what do you think it's going to take for the Democrats to get back on track and win a congressional baseball game? Because I don't think they've won since Cedric Richmond has left.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, they have to start recruiting better, right? It's all about the baseball game. If you got a guy that can go and perform in a baseball game, they can perform in policy making and politics.
I'm not sure if you watched that all at the baseball game, and it was brutal. Those last two innings took 2.5 hours. It was brutal.
Yeah. I mean, it's, the only way they get back is they got to find somebody to recruit like Rahm Emanuel. I don't mean that bad, but Rahm didn't care, what I mean, he cared about the individual and wanted the right person there and didn't, but he didn't go. I mean, he was a stickler. He went after the right people in the right place and got the right people involved. And that's why I was so happy. Our 2006 class was awesome. Democrats and Republicans. It was a great, great class.
Well, my last question, but before I ask, one of our goals of this podcast is to bring back the congressional golf tournament and maybe take some of the stigma away and see who the best golfers are in Congress. But hey, last question.
Trey Gowdy and Mulvaney were incredible. They played really well. But I think the Democrats won. I mean, I think we beat, the congressional. You guys know the story about the congressional sportsman deal, right? They go out there. Do you know that the Blue Dogs, if you had combined the sporting clays and skeet and all the rifle and all that shooting and stuff that we did, the Blue Dogs single-handedly won every single shooting event ever.
Wow.
And if you would have combined both the Democrats, non-Blue Dog members and combined all of the other Congress together, the Blue Dogs still beat them by double digits. All the rest of Congress, nobody could shoot off the Blue Dogs. I went hunting this year with Alan Boyd. Man, we had an absolute blast. Went down to Albany, Georgia, and quail hunted together for a couple of days, and it was just like old times, The
golf classic, the golf tournament, I was going to say, was in large part, I think you guys won because of John Yarmouth.
Yarmouth was a scratch popper, yes. He's almost as good as this guy named Rob Ellsworth,
Almost. The other guy that was really good was the Democratic senator from Colorado, Udall.
Yes.
He was a stick. I played with him at Bandon Dunes for a fundraiser for Kurt Schrader.
Yeah.
And Udall and he was supposed to play like 3 or 4 holes with each group. And I had him down by like 2 strokes through 4 holes. He played the whole 18 with me and everybody got pissed off. I started.
Udall's a great guy, by the way. What a great guy. Such a
good guy.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, Congressman. And we asked it to every one of our
call
guests.
Me Heath, I don't want to ruin my reputation these days. Just call me Heath,
not who you want to win the presidency, but who do you believe will be the president sworn in next January?
Oh my goodness. You saved the toughest question for last. I think Kamala Harris will be if she changes her approach and her delivery on her speeches. If she doesn't, Donald Trump does. I mean, she can't go and come up and laugh for 15 minutes before she says something. Sorry, that doesn't get it. People are looking for real solid stuff. Yes, you can be friendly. Yes, you need to smile, but your delivery has to change. People are looking for substance now. They're looking for the real substance in it. If she can deliver substance and bring a vice president along that can kind of really help her along the way, I think she can win. But if not, I mean, it's an uphill battle. I mean, Trump's got a lot of support. So did I answer it?
Yeah.
Maybe.
A little nuance.
All right. I mean, I was going to throw in a question about who's the only person in America that can sign Heath Shuler's name better than Heath Shuler. I had to I signed your name on everything except autograph requests. I made sure you signed those. I mean, I signed get out of class slips for me.
I am sure you did. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the reason why I said, Rob early on, like I said, he was smarter than anyone. He's the smartest guy in the world. Right. I mean, there's no one, I like I said, he's my little brother. But there is no tell. He one day said, "Hey, you need to learn. You need your signature on this index card." And I'm like, they probably get it for stamps and stuff like that. No, he's sitting in there and just trying to trace it and figure out how I write my name. And he's signing all this stuff. There's no telling what I really put my signature on from this guy.
Yeah.
There's more stuff. There's more correspondence at Georgetown University than any other place on earth.
Go on eBay, and if the Heath Shuler looks really good, I did it. Well, thank you.
No, you guys are awesome. Love to come back on your show anytime. You guys are great.
Well, thanks for making the time. It was a real honor to have you on.
You guys are awesome.
We appreciate it.
We'll next time I'm in DC, maybe we can all get together.
We'll get you back at MG Cup. They're going to come out. We're going to do a show from MG Cup October 18th.
I love it.
Come on up. You might have football that weekend, but we'll figure.
Of course, is that the third week in October? We'll be Alabama at home. I'll be traveling. I'm going to be going to Oklahoma this year. So I'll be going to Oklahoma to watch the University of Oklahoma to watch Vols play.
I'll be cheering for Tennessee. I can promise you that.
Oh, so you're a state fan?
I'm neither. I'm a West Virginia fan that lives in Oklahoma.
West Virginia.
Yeah. So
okay.
Oklahoma and Texas can have each other. They stab us in the back.
Yeah.
Dark side.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm making my maiden voyage to it's not my first big golf trip to Oklahoma to play with Matt in a charity event in August. So I expect my liberal democratic policies to be welcomed with open arms in the state of Oklahoma. I mean, they might try to get me to run for governor. I don't know.
Now, let me tell you what, when he talks about this liberal stuff, Rob is not as liberal. Remember, he was a Republican.
That's right.
And he was a Republican.
But you have to understand that Republican political consultants can't say the word Democrat without saying the word liberal first. It's just our nature. It's just what comes out.
My biggest pet peeve is when every Republican is now trained to say the Democrat Party. It's the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
Democrat is a noun. Democratic is an adjective. Like, we're the Democratic Party. We don't say
Rob.
You're like, oh, you're the Republic Party, or I just call them the dipshits now, but I love them. I still love them. They're just
hey, Rob, by the way, since yesterday's announcement, it's now in every talking point, it's the Biden-Harris. It's the Biden-Harris president's administration. So it's not the Biden administration, it's the Biden-Harris administration. You got to get that. You got to get the Harris point in there.
Hey, I mean, just get used to saying President Harris because it's coming. I mean, it's coming. I don't know. I have no idea who's going to win. Nobody does. Anyone that claims to is bullshit. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. You're the absolute best.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate you guys.
Enjoy
the show.
wish you and the family good health and happiness. And
Thank you, buddy.
See you soon.
Big Paul had, Navy's last year, and the coolest thing ever was to be able to stand on the field last year. I always stand on the sidelines and watch a game, and I was able to watch my son and daughter. They were in the same, literally my vision. Navy's on the field playing, and my daughter's on the sideline, and it was just the coolest thing ever. Greatest single moment, and I'll cherish for my whole life. So get to watch another season of that. So it's
well, hey, it's a testament.
Life is great.
It's a testament to you and Nicole too. I mean, you got two great kids with good values. You guys made them your top priority, and it shows now. It's paying off.
Well, I am blessed in that area, buddy. Nicole did an incredible job.
All right, we'll give Nicole all the credit.
Absolutely.
Give her a hug from Uncle Rob.
I sure will, guys.
All right.
Enjoyed it.
Take care.
All right, great.
Thank you.